All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jayant Bhandari, welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. This is my second live stream show that I have been doing. First one was I guess, a smashing success. It took me a little while to figure out, though, that it takes a little time for after you finish the live feed stream to have YouTube uploaded, so I ended up uploading the recording. Didn't really have to, but I'll keep that in mind for when this comes up, that I don't have to upload yours. The recording, I just have to be patient and let YouTube do it and upload it for me. And a couple disclaimers of sorts need to get out to my hosts, my guests. I would prefer people listen to my shows on cost.tv instead of YouTube, because I can't monetize on YouTube anymore. The cost.tv channel, I will post all the links to the shows in the YouTube video description. Please only listen on YouTube for maybe 15 seconds or so, just for the sake of giving me view count credit on YouTube. And then please click the link in the video description to listen on cost.tv so I can monetize on the cost.tv blockchain. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. And with that being said, I guess, Jayant Bhandari, I first heard about you from that interview you did on Mining Stock Education YouTube channel. Very intriguing interview, listening to the things you had to say about the markets of the Far East, which many Americans are ignorant about and also apathetic about. A lot of Americans suffer from apathy. It's a shame. And of course, a lot of people in your part of the world, India, don't necessarily have internet access, so they may not be able to learn about what's going on in the rest of the world. And that's I saw that for myself when I got a nice tour around New Delhi, walking around that city before going to the International Yoga Festival. When I was there for the International Yoga Festival in March of 2019, it was an experience I'll never forget. I got your site up to use as a guide. This show will be a lot about the markets of the Far East, as well as some portfolio stuff relating to gold, silver, precious metals, and the stock markets and the economy in general, and maybe even a few things about India and the caste system. I see you have something about that on your site. So as a tribute to your heritage, I might as well give you the chance to talk about that. Show some Indian pride for this opportunity to be on my show. But first we need to get you out, who you are, and everything that you have to say about yourself to introduce you to the listeners that haven't heard about you, who don't know anything about you. So who exactly are you? What did you experience that causes you to research the stuff that you do? And then we'll go from there after I give you the chance to be a primary source.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. I grew up in India, and then at one point of time, I went to do my post-graduation in the UK. That was 1991. And since then, I have lived on and off in the Western countries. I have lived in the UK. I have spent a fair bit of my time in continental Europe, Australia, New Zealand. I've lived many years in Canada, Singapore, United States, India, of course, where I grew up, and a couple of other countries that I've spent a fair bit of my time in. I do a lot of writing on cultural, economic, and political issues. That is what my calling is. I also work as a financial analyst. I analyze particularly junior mining companies, but I analyze companies in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, in the Singaporean Stock Exchange, American, Canadian, and Australian stock exchanges.
Thank you very much. And okay, I hope this isn't a problem. It seems to be suggesting it's waiting for me on the YouTube channel. I don't know if that's just something I can't see from my screen. In the event that this doesn't actually go live, don't worry about it. It will. I will make sure that I am pre-recording it, recording it there so people can listen to this when it goes when we're done. Well, now we've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about. First of all, this article here, India-China border issue, I thought there was more of a India-Pakistan border issue than an India-China border issue. When I was went to the International Yoga Festival, I actually had a problem flying in and out of the country because of the little conflict, military conflict that happened regarding, I think it was India shooting missiles into Pakistan or something like that, and they had to do a quick rerouting of the flights, and also I had to wait a lot longer on my ride home, which was a long ride home, of course, on the opposite side of the world from where I live in the Philadelphia suburbs. But I guess give a little history about maybe what it is, the conflict behind India and Pakistan, what that's all about. And then after that, why don't you tell us about what's in this border issue here? We got a lot of stuff dealing with border issues here in America that we've been hearing ever since Trump became the president, and the whole desire for him to build a wall, as well, not really a literal wall, but maybe like a electronic type wall with drones and surveillance cameras and whatnot. But anyhow, why don't you enlighten us about the border issues of India, Pakistan, and also China?
Andrew, India and Pakistan became a so-called independent from the British rule in 1947. And that's when about 400 kingdoms and principalities, which were what is currently India and Pakistan, became two different countries. Pakistan became a very strange country. It was West Pakistan, which is currently Pakistan, and there was East Pakistan, which is today Bangladesh. But right from the day the two countries came into existence, there has been massive amount of border problems between India and Pakistan. There was a massive amount of migration that took place of Hindus from Pakistan to India and of Muslims from India to Pakistan. And as many as 1 million or more people died in that migration. People were just killed by the other side while they were trying to migrate. Millions of people lost their properties. Hundreds of thousands of women were raped. It was an absolutely crazy humanitarian crisis in 1947 that the world does not remember much of. But the fundamental reason between India and Pakistan is that both countries are tribal countries. They worry about every single millimeter of land mass that they could get control of. Whether for the right reason or wrong reason is immaterial. They both have eyes on each other's areas of control. And in fact, so obsessed they are of land areas that they have been fighting over what is mostly a desert, what is a border between Gujarat and Pakistan, which is mostly a desert. And then they have been fighting over a glacier in Jammu and Kashmir, but also Jammu and Kashmir. Now, Pakistan should have no interest in Jammu and Kashmir, and neither should India have much interest in Jammu and Kashmir, but they have been fighting on it for no good reason necessarily, particularly when people of Kashmir want to be by themselves, when they want to be independent of both India and Pakistan. But again, this is an expansionary mindset of people of both of these countries, which drive the democratic governments of these two countries to acquire as much as they can. Now, since 1950s, India and China have had problems with what is primarily one area called Aksai Chin. And Aksai Chin is extremely important area for China. It's a desert otherwise. But this is the area through which their highway between Tibet and Xinjiang, which is the Muslim province of Pakistan, passes. Now, India lays claim on that area, and China wanted to ensure that the highway between Tibet and Xinjiang did not become a problem. So they basically took over that area in 1962. And they also acquired a lot more of what was under the control of India in 1962. And then it was an easy job for China to enter India. Indian GDP those days was equivalent to that of China, but China had an easy job moving into India those days. And then once they had taken over a lot of land mass of India, they went back to their original places mostly, except that they retained control of Aksai Chin. Again, as I said, because they wanted to protect this highway between Tibet and Xinjiang. Now, all these years later, Chinese economy is 5 times as big as that of Indian economy, and India is reasserting its claim on Aksai Chin. That is one of the reasons China is getting irritated, and it has acquired some parts of India in the recent months. And Indian government hasn't really clarified what are the areas that India has lost, but it has certainly lost tens of Indian army men in the fight with Chinese. Chinese haven't declared how many Chinese died in the fight, but the border is very tense between India and China because, again, India is a democratic country. There's a huge amount of nationalism happening in the country where Indians want to teach China a lesson, unconcerned about the fact that China is at least 5 times more powerful than India is. And then when China could defeat India in 1962, it will be much easier for China to defeat India today. But again, people who watch TV and who want to feel proud vicariously through the guy from the rural area who fights for them have no problems with how many people die because he's just going to watch TV and he's not going to die.
Thank you. Very interesting history there. Now I'd like to talk about the economies of the East. Specific when people think of the East, they think of China, Japan, the Koreas. Of course, I guess India could be there as well. And well, it's a completely different part of the world than America in more ways than one. One interesting thing about China that kind of intrigues me is the fact that China seems to be prepping a little better for like its economy to go bad or the global economy to go bad than America is. There was a political cartoon I once saw showing America and China like throwing things over a net. China was throwing gold over the net while America was throwing worthless paper dollars, which really, for all intents and purposes, are worthless because it has no intrinsic value. Ever since the Nixon shock of 1971, when the United States got the dollar off the gold standard entirely and eliminated the dollar's convertibility to gold, there is no gold standard with the global currency. And many countries now, more and more every day, seem to be less interested in getting involved with the United States dollar. And that political cartoon seems to show China, well, I can't imagine how they could possibly lose that if that was a real game, because gold would definitely trump the dollar in every regard. Of course, like I said, Americans are apathetic. They don't really seem to give a damn about this. But as someone who really understands the significance of this, I'm thinking, oh my God, could it be that China, because they actually act like they understand what really is money and what should be considered that which has value, they're the ones that if the shit hits the fan and this economy crashes all over the world, perhaps they're the ones that are going to be prepared because they got the gold, and all the gold that's in Fort Knox probably isn't actually gold. So America's been lying about how much gold they actually have for quite a long time. So maybe you can help people make sense of what that's all about regarding how China, what they know about regarding getting the gold. Let's start with just one country at a time. China, its understanding of why it needs to store gold, when that started, and where they could potentially be going, and could they, dare I say it, become the next top economy of the world?
So, Andrew, you use the word apathy when talking about Americans, and it is not necessarily apathy. The reality is that America is by far the biggest economy in the world. It has also been the most successful economy in the world. It is the most powerful nation by far compared to any other country. And America has dominated the world space over the last 70, 80 years. Everyone looks up to America. Everyone who is competent or even someone who is poor anywhere in the world wants to move to the US. So America is an extremely important place. And as a result, Americans didn't really have to necessarily worry about the fact that any other country could match capabilities of America. Now, what has happened since late 1970s is that a new country started to emerge out of nowhere, which was a communist backwater, hellish country where millions had died of direct or indirect genocide, cultural revolution, the Great Leap Forward of Mao. And this country suddenly started to change its direction. And it has started to accept and adopt the American ways of doing business and American ways of running the economy. And this country, China, over the last 50 years or so, has continuously grown at an extremely rapid pace. So much so that China today consumes about 50% of everything that is all commodities that are made in the that are produced in the world. So, for example, China consumes as much coal or more coal than rest of the world put together. And similarly, China seems to consume just about 50% of everything that is produced in the world. China has become an extremely important country. And you look at the label on your shirt or the label on your computer or whatever you have in front of you, I can almost guarantee you that more than 50 or perhaps 80% of what you have in front of you has been made in China. And that is the kind of manufacturing revolution that is started in China. And it has made a massive impact all over the world, in the Western world as well. Now, China has grown to a stage and a place where it clearly is in a position to start challenging the US presence. So US has been by far the best and the most powerful and the most visible country on the planet. But over the last few years, it has become easy to see that China is going to at least be number two, if not number one, at some point of time. So people are paying attention, and China has Chinese military is becoming stronger, and the world has become dependent on Chinese goods. If China stops, or for whatever reason, America stops importing Chinese goods, you will have a huge inflation in the US. So China has become an extremely, extremely important part of the world. It has become an extremely important part of your and my life.
Indeed, it has, and but one has to wonder what exactly was Donald Trump thinking when he was trying to put some sort of a tariff embargo or whatever it may have been on China earlier on. I don't know how many years ago that was. Time sure flies by very quickly, but he was trying to put tariffs on Chinese goods, and it was like he was trying to make it seem like China is not in our best interest to deal with them. We need to try to take care of things ourselves and worry about our own problems in this country and not like rely on someone else, which seems kind of silly because we've been dealing with Chinese economy for such a long time. So why in the world would he want to do that and get us at odds with them? It's a little bit of a head scratcher, but do you remember what that was all about? And do you think maybe you know what Trump was trying to do?
So Andrew, I take a very favorable view of what Trump is trying to do. He will very likely not succeed, but I am on his side when it comes to this matter. Now, you said that you live around Philadelphia area. You only have to drive around Philadelphia for a couple of hours to understand how much manufacturing America has lost over the last few decades. There are rotting factories, refineries, etc., all over in that area. What has happened in America is that American government has purposefully thrown out a lot of manufacturing out of America for no good reason. That has destroyed jobs, which means that a lot of those people who lived an honorable life now have taken on to drugs because they don't have jobs anymore. America sent those jobs to China. Now, here is the problem. What was happening before Trump came into power was that American presidents were over obsequious towards China. They agreed with just about anything China demanded. And Trump wanted to change that. Trump quite rightly wants to bring some of the legitimate manufacturing back to the US, particularly when there's a huge amount of unemployment in the US. Why should you be importing basic stuff from China when those things could be produced by people who are unemployed in the United States? So I agree with what Trump is trying to do. Again, I think he will fail eventually, but if I were in his position, I should have done exactly the same thing. I actually admire him for challenging China when China had become accustomed to an obsequious behavior from every other country. So I am a big admirer of Trump as a result of what he has done. Now, he has imposed tariff also because China was copying American technology. It was forcing American companies to provide China the details of the technology. Now, there's nothing new about it because every country that has grown in the last 100, 200 years, you will see the same pattern. They copy and they maybe what you might call is steal technology of other countries. So there's nothing new about it. I don't criticize China necessarily, but America, being the owner of those things, wants to benefit from it or at least not lose out in this trade with China. And Trump is trying to correct that. Again, I'm not sure if he will win.
Yes, not sure if he will win if there's massive voter fraud, but then again, how could voter fraud succeed? The word on the street, apparently, among in the conspiracy field, was that Hillary Clinton didn't actually win the popular vote. She actually lost in a landslide, but the voter fraud tried to make it seem like she won the popular vote, but that was the best that it could do in the end. The rumor has it that for all intents and purposes, the voting machines were basically saying voter fraud, too many votes for Trump, voter fraud impossible because overload from Trump votes impossible, too intense. So there was no way that could be pulled off. And to think that Americans actually want someone like Biden in office seems kind of silly. God help this country if he were to actually be elected into office. But if I had to pick two, but between two, yes, I would. I guess I have no choice but to say Trump would definitely be better than Biden. But we don't know what's going to happen. But a lot is supposed to happen after this election, and not really going to get into the maybe the astrology and whatnot for what's supposed to happen after this election in this interview, maybe later on. But right now, I do want to switch back to the economics of the eastern part of the world. The thing about Japan that a lot of people seem to not understand about how Japan could have been in a recession since like the 90s, and yet they seem to be going so incredibly strong in their economy. Now, how exactly is that possible? And I seem to recall hearing something about helicopter money, like in Japan, all the money that's like debt money is basically being helicoptered into the residents, the citizens of Japan, like the kind of checks that Americans got not that long ago, $1,200. The stimulus checks, which I don't know if there's going to be another one coming, but there was one before, and I seem to recall hearing that that actually happens in Japan all the time. And where exactly do they get the money to do that with? It's kind of like all the money that I guess you think of the 1% controlling the 99%, the bankers and all controlling everyone and impoverishing everyone in Japan. Well, that's kind of true too, but it's not as bad in the sense that all the money that the bankers could be stealing from everybody, they're not doing it as bad as they are in other parts of the world. So that money can be helicopter moneyed to the people of the country. Is that how it works there, and how the economy of Japan has been able to be seemingly going so strong, even though they've been in a recession, borderline depression since the 90s? Because I'm sure the pachinko casino industry can't be the only thing that's keeping that country going, even though it seems to be a pretty popular thing there, the pachinko industry. But how does Japan do it?
The international media, particularly the Western leftist media, hates Japan. Now, we can go into why it hates Japan, but what the media does is that it cherry picks anything bad to do with Japan. Now, Japan has lost a lot of its GDP over the last 20 years or so. But then you also have to remember that Japanese population has also fallen in the last couple of decades. At the same time, if you correct for GDP of Japan on per working adult basis, you realize the Japanese economy has actually done better than the American economy. Japan is probably the best country on the planet. It certainly is the best country. It's a country I like the most. Now, those Japanese are much more honorable people than the underclass of America is. Underclass of America is full of grievances, full of feeling of victimization. They consider welfare payments as their right. They go on the street, they riot because they think they need to be paid, given free money by other people. If you look at the underclass of Japan has honor. They don't go to the streets begging for or asking for money as a right. Even beggars in East Asia, Andrew, are very shy. They don't find it honorable to be in your face begging. Yes, again, I would say that the media has given a wrong picture of Japan. I love that country. I go there at least twice a year. It's the most probably the most safe country on the planet. It is extremely competent. If you do a verbal deal with the Japanese, it will be seen as a proper contract. There is a lot of honor in that country. It's a very homogeneous country. Now, a couple of things have happened. Japan is 99% ethnic Japanese. Japan does not want to open its door to outsiders. Really, if you think through this thing, multiculturalism and diversity has been an unmitigated disaster for the Western society. Now, Western people like to think that there's something great about multiculturalism and diversity, but it hasn't actually worked out for the West. You have huge social problems today in the US as a product of diversity, and you can't really undo this diversity anymore. You have the same problems becoming very visible in Europe, particularly with the new immigrants who have come in from northern part of Africa and the Middle East. So when you look at all those things, the media wants Japan, Korea, China to open up their doors for these refugees, and these countries simply keep their doors shut. And I am very much with those people because they want to minimize or not have social and political problems in those countries. And Japan is a great example. You, as a 15-year-old girl, can go into walk around the worst part of Japan, and she will have absolutely no problems. That's how safe that country is. The police chases down even the smallest robbery or theft that happens because they want to make sure that you want to stop criminal activities very early on rather than leave them for much later when they become much bigger. People are extremely competent. A friend of mine who works quite a bit in Japan, and again, I actually invest in Japan, my friend tells me that they are Japanese Einsteins. They are very creative, very innovative. And again, the media wants to portray a picture as if Japanese are not creative people. There's a lot of creativity in that country. The technology is used for the people. In fact, in whole of East Asia, the technology is much more user-friendly than you have in the Western world today. So I have a very, very positive opinion about Japan. Now, what did happen in Japan was that in 1980s, if I recall it right, the garden of the king of Japan was worth in financial terms as much or more as the value of all of real estate in California. Now, so there was an extraordinarily high bullishness in the stock market and the property market, and that really didn't make any sense. But that's kind of hysteria every society goes through. Japan went through that hysteria when its property market and its stock market went several multiple of their underlying values, and it has been correcting for the last few decades now. But that does not change the underlying fact that Japan is probably the best country on the planet.
Thank you. And one country in the East that is so small, but so significant in many regards, considering that here I actually have your interview on mining stock education up, looking down the things here of subjects that you discussed. At the 8:31 mark of that video, it actually says here, Singapore to overtake New York as world's financial capital. Now that's a statement. Okay, now what exactly is that all about? Interesting thing about Singapore. Funny, I mentioned that country. I actually got 2 moonstones from that country. I only ordered one. I'm currently in the process of trying to collect all the gemstones, and some shipping company that went through Singapore, it originally got lost, so I asked for a replacement. They gave me the replacement free of charge, but the one that got lost, even though they refunded it for me, eventually found its way through. And the funny thing is, I actually got a second moonstone. So I don't know what the luck is with that country and the things shipping through it. I ended up getting 3 moonstones when I only paid for one and didn't ask for a third one, but that's what happened. But anyhow, Singapore to overtake New York as the world's financial capital. Well, actually, how do we even know that New York is the world's financial capital? Is it? I mean, it's not even the biggest city in terms of population. Mexico City and Tokyo certainly have more people in them than New York does. So when you talk about biggest cities, you probably should think of population and not so much geographical size as the biggest thing in determining biggest city. And New York's not the cream of the crop in that regard. So why would it be the world's financial capital? So, well, maybe you could explain why it is. And then after that, how do you know for a fact that Singapore should overtake it? And what has Singapore done to make that possible?
40 years back, Andrew, 40 or 50 years back, Singapore was a mosquito-ridden, partly slummish slum area. Now, this country, from being one of the poorer countries in the world, has become among the richest countries on the planet. It's much richer on per capita basis than the US is today. Singapore has achieved this on the basis of attracting the best people from around the world into that country. It has encouraged businesses to develop. It does not believe in the concept of social welfare. Now, of course, the society looks after you if you are really in a desperate situation. But if you think if you are young and you should be allowed to get free money from the government, you should forget about it. That isn't going to happen in Singapore. As a result, Singapore is an extremely vibrant country. There is virtually no unemployment in that country. People are paid well. Taxes are low, government works, public transportation is extremely cheap. For about, let's say, $1.50 American, I can get from the airport to the downtown area of Singapore. So then you can imagine how much does it cost to take a 5-block distance travel on public transportation. Virtually nothing, about 20, 30, 50 cents per visit. So Singapore works, Andrew, and it's a country where the government interferes very little in your life. They let you live your life as long as you are not creating a nuisance or public disorder. They let you make as much money as you want. They tax you the least. And they have set an example for what a small government should be and how competent a small government can be. Now, because Singapore has developed so much only over the last 40, 50 years, it has taken world a very long time, and it will take still a longer time to understand what has actually happened in Singapore and Hong Kong and Taiwan and South Korea. What has happened in East Asia is that East Asia has been increasingly becoming a bigger and bigger part of the world's GDP.
Yeah, hold on. Let me stop you right there because the first thing on the Mining Stock Education thing says East Asia will lead the global economy. Sorry to interrupt you, but I needed to point that statement out that that's what it said. So now that you say how it's going to lead the global economy, please expand on that, how it will lead the global economy.
So you can see that over the last couple of decades, the Western economies have started to stagnate. The growth rate is in low single digit in the Western society today, and that has been the case for the last many years. At the same time, look at countries like China. China has been growing between 7 to 12% growth rate over the last many, many years now. South Korea grew at a similar rate 20, 30 years back. Singapore continues to have a higher growth rate than the Western society has, despite the fact that Singapore is much richer than an average Western person. So what you have is that because of a higher growth rate in East Asia, the center of gravity of the world has been rapidly relocating itself from the Western world to East Asia. And eventually, and it won't take much longer, I think another 5 or 10 years, East Asia will be the dominant part of the world. It will not be North America or Europe dominating the world. Now, it does not take much imagination to understand that. Europe, particularly United Kingdom, was a dominant force in 1940s. And United Kingdom, which used to run a major part of the world through colonization, is now a small, has a very much smaller economic footprint in the world. Similarly, America became a very big part of the world's economic footprint. But again, time moves on and the pendulum has swung again, and East Asia is becoming very rapidly the dominant part of the world's economy, but also because they don't have the social problems that the Western society suffers from. Now, the social problems of the Western society is a massive drag on the economy of the Western society. These riots that you are seeing, the BLM riots over the last few months, they're destroying the American economy, but they also have a very negative effect on the economic growth because they force redirection of capital from wealth generators and savers into the consumption of people who are rioting on the streets, while they are also destroying businesses, which is forcing businesses to flee. Now, those things don't happen in East Asia. You can not even think about destroying a business. In fact, if you try to protest much in East Asia, the police is likely to take you to prison, and you are not going to be happy with what happens to you in the prison. The end result of this massive increase in economic power of East Asia is that Hong Kong and Singapore have increasingly become very important as financial part of East Asia. But again, the economy of the world was Eurocentric, Western-centric until now. But as it becomes more and more East Asia-centric, the power will move to Hong Kong and Singapore, but more to Singapore because Hong Kong is, again, facing certain problems over the last few years now.
Now, you mentioned how the United Kingdom has lost its global superpower status, the old expression of the sun never set on the British Empire, meaning that at some point, no matter where you were in the world, even if there was some part of the world that's dark or whatever, there's always some part of the world that has sunlight on it that the British Empire would control at any given 24-hour period. But that's changed over time. However, I've also heard from some in the conspiracy field that it is kind of a misconception to think that many of the countries, including America, that claim that they got independence from British rule actually got independence. British researcher David Icke would have a lot to say about that, talking about how the American Revolution was really just a switch from America from a prison with bars into a prison without bars. Kind of makes you wonder, okay, did the maybe same thing happen with India after the time of Gandhi? We thought they thought they got independence, but did they really? And it's an interesting fact. I remember hearing that who's the richest person on the face of the earth, if you were to include the amount of money they owe and the value of all the property they owe. Well, it's not Jeff Bezos who owns Amazon. It's actually Queen Elizabeth of Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who would be the richest if you were to include value of property and money. So, well, what exactly does she owe that makes her so rich? And are a lot of the countries that think they're free from British rule not really free from British rule in this world?
Andrew, nothing is perfect on the planet. If you think that there is perfect freedom anywhere in the world, it actually does not exist. You have problems, you have certain restrictions even in East Asia. But in my view, East Asia is among the freest part of the world today. And America is an extremely free part of the world. It is very likely more free than the United Kingdom is. So you have to consider all these places on relative basis because there's nothing like perfect freedom. Now, you talked about whether countries like India or countries in Africa did become more independent after the United Kingdom or France or other colonizing powers left those countries. And my blunt answer is no. You can see a country by country analysis of all these colonized countries. And what you see is that immediately after the British left these third world countries, they fell into in the hands of local goons. Every country, even country like Zimbabwe, which was in which the power went to what was at that time seen as a saint, Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, became a horrible goon within the next few years. And the local people knew about it. One of the biggest exoduses of local people happened immediately after the British left those countries. So, for example, a very large number of Indians who could see what was coming left India and moved to the UK immediately after India got its so-called independence. The same happened with Zimbabwe. You can meet a lot of people who grew up in Zimbabwe or whose parents were born in Zimbabwe, who moved to America or the United Kingdom. And these are very smart people. The best of Zimbabweans left Zimbabwe very soon after it became so-called independent. So independence is a very fake word. It fools you into thinking that independence is something that gives you freedom. Now, should I want to be ruled by sane, educated, sophisticated, a relatively compassionate white guy, or should I be ruled by junkies that started to run India after the British left? And my answer is very clear. I would have loved to have English stay back in India. And you can see that in my performance. I actually left India to be in a country run by European people. So it's clear that I find more freedom in countries run by European people than countries run by Indians. And that's why I left India. India is a lot less free, and it's becoming increasingly tribal and increasingly less free as time is going by. It is becoming a massive chaos because the British put systems together in that country. They organized that society. And what I'm saying about India is actually also true with Latin America, it's true with Africa, it's true with all of the third world. Without the first world ruling those countries, those people are becoming worse, more wretched, and actually less free.
Well, they may not be as free as they were, but they're certainly very friendly. When I was there, they were very hospitable, willing to let me into their abodes to try some tea and whatnot. It was a nice little experience. So you almost never see that kind of hospitality in America, but everybody in India seems to be so friendly. I guess it's because a lot of them don't wear shoes, and being barefoot makes you a happy person. So,
Well, Andrew, that's actually not true. Indians are among the most stressed people on the planet. It's an extremely stressed country. It's not a very friendly place. Now, how they respond to a white person who is a rarity in that country is something completely different. That is not their authentic expression. So they might look happy because looking at you, talking with you is a moment of catharsis for them. But again, as a tourist, what you see and experience might not be the reality of the place you are visiting.
oh yeah, it's different where depending on you go. You got two major religions, the Hindu religion and English, and it's got Islam, Hindu, and Christianity, three different religions all over the country. So it's a bit of a melting pot like America is in some regard. But I'd like to get back to switch gears for a moment here about who's controlling some of the things going on in East Asia. Um, Fritz Springmeier, his book Bloodlines of the Illuminati, he actually mentioned the Lee family. The Lees are basically like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers of East Asia. There's actually a picture of the late David Rockefeller with one of the prominent Lee members at the beginning of that chapter where that talks about the Lee family. Also, Benjamin Fulford, who lives in Japan, he's gone as far as saying that the Japanese mafia controlled the Kim Jong family of North Korea. And I mean, you often think of China and Japan being at odds with each other, but does the Japanese mafia actually control China in some regard, and the idea that there's division is really there's a lot more to it than we're led to believe. So, do you know anything about this Lee family that I'm referencing, and also the idea of the mob of Japan, the Yakuza, or what it's pronounced, controlling a lot of the dealings going on in that part of the world?
Japanese mafia is very well known. They control a lot of things in Japan. There's no doubt about it. Actually, you can say the same thing in Hong Kong. There is what is called Chinese triads in Hong Kong that seem to have a huge influence and control over Hong Kong society. At the same time, Andrew, you have similar problems absolutely everywhere in the world. In the United States, you have Hispanic gangs, and they have a huge amount of influence in this in the United States. In Los Angeles, there are gangs from El Salvador, in Chicago, for example, who under who people exist in fear. So yes, those families probably. So I don't know much about the families that you mentioned, but I wouldn't be surprised if some families have excessive influence in some of those countries. But overall, I compared to a lot of that is happening in the world, those countries are leave you free to live your life the way you want to.
Yes, interesting fact about America versus other parts of the world. The idea that America is the land of the free. Well, Jordan Maxwell has once said America is actually the most lawless country in the world. Just go to any courtroom and the judge says, I don't care what the law says. It's my interpretation of the law that matters. And the privatized prison industry in America is a huge disaster, because when you privatize prisons, you incentivize trying to make profit by criminalizing everything that's not technically a crime. By, if anybody understands delegated authority in natural law, you know that if no one has committed harm or intends to cause harm through negligence or deliberate intent, then nobody in the public and nobody in the government or the police or whatever has any authority to charge them or convict them or imprison them for a crime. But that doesn't seem to be the case in America. Get caught with some drug that they just decided to criminalize for whatever the reason, because someone doesn't like it, you get thrown in jail. And the privatized prison industry makes that very prominent. But in other countries, it's not. Yeah, there's things like illegal drugs and other things that are legal because someone doesn't like it. Malum prohibitum is the proper legal term for that. But the prison population is nowhere near as big as it is in America. So aside from the fact that it's private prisons in America that leads to that, are there any other things that you can explain that would make sense of why the prison economy of America is so corrupt and nonsensical and makes a mockery of the phrase land of the free, relative to a country like communist China, which the prison population in that country, where the law thugs will do anything because this is communist government rules everything. It really doesn't show that with the prison population.
So Andrew, I am currently in the US. I spend a fair bit of my time in the United States. And compared to the rest of the world, I still consider America to be the freest country on the planet. I still think it's the best country on the planet, although it's losing its control. The freedom is, Americans are losing their freedoms, and America is losing its hold on its own economy. That said, at this point of time, America is still probably the freest country on the planet. Now, the prison population is a function of the fact that if you want to have freedom, you have to have a very strong law and order situation. Those two things go together. Criminals should face prison sentences. They should account for their mistakes. And I think without that, you cannot have a civilization, you cannot have a stable society. And that has to happen in America. Now, I completely agree that US has a higher crime rate than let's say East Asian countries have. In fact, East Asian countries have an extremely low crime rate. If there's a murder in Japan, it's national news, and probably a murder happens once in a few months. Once a murder happens once a day in a small town in the United States. So the crime rate in East Asia is extremely low, but that's the feature you see everywhere in the world. East Asian immigrants in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom have virtually no crime rate. So you can go into the genetics of these people, but different societies will have different crime rates because of the different kind of people that live in those societies. And East Asians, irrespective of what kind of political and prison system they exist in, actually don't go to prison much because they don't do much of crimes.
Interesting take on it. Okay, let's switch to the thing that all the stock portfolio investors are chomping at the bit to hear me talk about with you. Ways to invest and profitize if you have a little, even just a little bit of spare change. I mentioned that because I just created an account with Acorns, the YouTube site Economics Explained. It talked about this site called Acorns that they seem to have a partnership with. Just invest short investment, just a small $5 investment minimum with them, and they automatically give you $5 on top of that for investing in the in whatever you could invest in on their site. And well, I think that the best things for people to invest in at the moment, with the way the economy is going, and is probably, as the word on the street, is set to change with currency reset, dare I say it, may actually be gold and silver. But when it comes to buying gold and silver, how much of each? I mean, I heard one person say, I mean, if gold and silver are both meetings of exchange, what's the point in getting gold? I mean, nobody's going to want to, if you can trade a gold coin for a loaf of bread, I mean, what can a silver coin get you? Pretty much nothing. Although if a silver coin can get you a loaf of bread, then you would expect a gold coin to give you tons and tons of loaves of bread. But then who decides what gold and silver is worth? In the end, it's worth whatever we as a species decide it's worth. And it became a lot more complicated with the Nixon shock of 1971. And let me point out, Mike Maloney did a fascinating presentation on how the world has changed since 1971, showing tons of graphs, charts, and mathematical things that show how the world has changed. And anybody who watched that presentation, and I encourage people to watch it, it's on Mike Maloney's YouTube channel, Gold Silver with Mike Maloney. Anybody who sees that the Nixon shock idea of getting the dollars converted billion to gold, getting rid of it, is an idea that can be described in one word: stupid. Because nothing good has come out of that for America and the rest of the world at large since then. So, but even so, they say gold and silver is the best way to go. And before we start talking about gold and silver stocks, let's talk about the precious metals. And after you explain how we make sense of how much gold and silver is worth and how we decide how much it's worth, let's talk also about maybe the other precious metals: copper, rhodium, palladium, and platinum. You never hear much about them, but you can still buy those metals off the precious metals investing sites. But why would anybody want to get any of those if gold and silver is what they always talk about? So why don't you help make sense of that as well, if you can, if you know anything about those metals?
Andrew, human society has continued to grow for the last, let's say, 10,000 years in terms of how it does things. We had agricultural revolution. We had so many revolutions in the last 10,000 years that hunter-gatherers have come to exist in a way that is completely and totally different from how we started. There's only one area in which we have regressed back to where we were 10,000 years back, or perhaps we have become worse than that, and that is in terms of money. Money was always something which had inherent value. So you would exchange something of substance, something of inherent value with someone else. And money came to exist as something which was acceptable to virtually everyone or most people. And gold, silver, copper came to exist as mediums through which people exchanged, through which people transacted with each other, because they all had their minds on what those coins were worth. But now what we have is paper money, and there's nothing called paper money. What you have is fiat currency, which means that these sheets of paper that you have in your pocket have no inherent value. They have zero inherent value, except that it says something very stupid on those bill notes, which is that the governor promises to pay you back the same denomination of fiat currency that you have in your hand, which is a circular argument, which is completely idiotic. But somehow we have come to accept this fiat currency system. Now, this paper currency system enables anyone who can print those currencies to have to be able to transact without any producing anything. So all the federal banks have to do is to print $1 billion, and they have $1 billion in their possession, and they can go and buy $1 billion of his stuff. So they have put themselves in a position where they can, through fraud, steal your wealth through inflation. And that has been a reason behind this, a big reason behind destruction of the Western economies, because Western economies, given the populism and demagoguery that comes with democracies, have been able to print as much as they wanted to, because that's the easiest way to provide bread and circuses to the masses. They have basically destroyed the foundations, corroded the foundations of the Western economic system. Now, gold and silver were what these currencies were backed by until early 1970s. That meant that you could take your dollar bill to the Federal Reserve Office and get, in exchange of that, a certain quantity of gold or silver. Now, those days are gone. No country in the world offers to give you gold or silver in place of those fiat currency bills. So what do you have as a person with some savings? Your options are very limited. If you take your cash to the bank might offer you 0.1% interest rate or lower, might even offer you a 1 or 2% interest rate, when inflation rate might be higher than 2%. Now, that means is that the value of your fiat currency, the conventional value of that fiat currency might be falling by 2% a year, and you might be making 0.1% interest rate, which means that you're actually losing 1.9% value of your fiat currency every year. So what are your options as a saver? If you have passive money, how do you grow it? Your opportunities are extremely limited, because not everyone understands the stock market, not everyone understands the property market. And of course, Andrew, as you might agree, property market has gone crazy over the last 2 or 3 decades. It has gone up everywhere around the world. And there's a limit to how much it can go up anymore. My guess is it will fall. So for most savers, the opportunities are limited, and that's where silver and gold are very important, because at least you can preserve what you already have instead of wasting it away by keeping your cash in the bank or keeping your cash in your personal possession. That's where gold and silver come into existence. Now, the good thing with gold and silver is that they are so liquid that the spread, difference between buy and sell prices are very small with gold and silver. That might not be the case with platinum, palladium, rhodium, and other uh, commodities and precious metals. The difference could be even wider with, let's say, zinc, copper, nickel. So it's much more difficult to store other things compared to gold and silver.
Thank you for helping make sense of that. And if also another thing, if you're not going to buy the actual precious metals, you could also get involved in the stock market. I myself did that when it came to my 401k money. I had quite a bit of 401k money that I've saved up over the many years, and but there seems to be some sort of a problem regarding being able to get it out to buy gold and silver with it. There seemed to be some sort of a legal loophole that, well, no legal loophole of any sort that I could have exploited to be able to do that. Regarding the job I did, hard to get into the explanation why that was, but eventually what I settled in for doing was what I could do was invest the 401k money into gold mining stocks into some company, which happened to be one of the largest gold mining companies in the world. And you had said a few things in your mining stock education YouTube channel interview dealing with junior mining stocks. I'd like to ask you to explain the difference between junior mining stocks and well, if there's junior, then you would think there's senior mining stocks, but you never hear the phrase senior mining stocks. But I presume that if you were to give a name to the non-junior mining stocks, you would call them senior mining stocks. What exactly is the difference, and how does one know which one would be the best to get involved in? And maybe I should ask you, did the fact that the mining stock company was one of the biggest in the world that I invested my 401k money in, does the fact that it's the biggest in the world not necessarily mean that it's the best? Bigger is not always better, in some regards. Could this be the case?
Andrew, if you are very rich, if you have billions of dollars, your options are very limited. You have to go for a big company because those are multi-$10 billion companies, and then you can move your money in and out more freely. However, because big people with a lot of money play in those big companies, they tend to be more expensive compared to what they have as inherent value of the company compared to smaller companies. And that is what is the difference between mining companies and junior mining companies. Junior mining companies are just small versions of big mining companies, which means that you might have a $20 billion gold mining company, but at the same time you might have $100 million gold mining companies, which I would call a junior mining company. And these companies, because they are small, because they are the companies in which billionaires won't have any interest, tend to offer you a better upside in terms of differential between value and price. The reason why I am more interested in junior mining companies compared to big mining companies. But at the same time, Andrew, it is extremely important for investors to understand that they should understand why they are investing in a company. They should understand the value of those companies, and understanding values of big companies is extremely hard and difficult. If you want to invest in the biggest gold mining company, it might take you about 15 days or a month, even as a professional analyst, to start putting a value on that company. It's a time-consuming job. So why should I invest in a big company when I can invest in a smaller company? Because my money is much more limited than what a billionaire has. So I can spend far less time in a smaller company analyzing it, have a better upside, and spend less time analyzing it. But whatever people do, I seriously suggest that they should give a thorough examination to that company. They should analyze as much about that company as possible and not invest unless they have understood why they are investing in that company. Because what happens in the stock market is that not only people invest to create value, but also a lot of value get transferred from wallets of suckers to wallets of people who understand more about the stock market, who understand more about the valuations of these companies. So if they don't understand these companies well, then they might get lucky, but they have a higher chance of losing what they have invested in these companies.
Thank you for the advice there. And well, one thing that I heard that it's a bad idea to invest in back in around 2012. Now I was kind of suckered into the economic collapse scam. I mean, I've since come to the realization that the economy is probably not going to collapse as much as it's going to be a reset of some sort that may cause some trials and tribulations, but it's not really going to collapse. But I had been suckered into believing that, and one of the things that I did that well, maybe it would eventually be a good idea, but I probably did it too soon. I didn't really time it right. Was getting my money out of mutual funds because I listened to this guy Lindsey Williams who kind of love him, hate him. He's revealed a lot of things, but he's also said a lot of he kind of led to believe that Obama was going to lose to Mitt Romney. That didn't happen, and he also thought the dollar would be dead for all intents and purposes by the end of 2012 when the Mayan calendar ran out, but that didn't happen. The dollar is still being used, and but anyway, he did say get your money out of mutual funds. And I'd like to ask you maybe why having money in mutual funds was a bad idea. I did put them in silver mining stocks, but I did actually end up losing a little bit of money in that. Well, probably because I didn't time it right, and I had been suckered into believing that there was going to be some sort of a collapse. So I probably should have kept it in the mutual funds for a little bit longer. But at some point, I would think you want to get them out of mutual funds because, well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that mutual funds have something to do with the government, and that kind of means the government can take it away from you at any time. So it's not really a good thing to have, even though it may seem like a good thing because you can profit off it. But in the end, they could screw you. So it's better to get out of it. How exactly do you know anything about that? What's the bad side of having money invested in mutual funds?
Andrew, governments can take away your money anyway. So if you have all your money in the United States, and if, let's say, someone like Joe Biden or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Kamala Harris come to power, your money will be at a huge, huge risk. So what everyone has to do to protect himself against this political risk is to diversify politically, which means that you should have your money in jurisdictions outside where you live so that you provide a better protection to your capital. So that is my approach to protecting my capital from political risks. Now, talking about mutual funds, remember exactly the way you analyze companies, you have to analyze the manager who is running these mutual funds. Is that mutual fund manager a good, competent guy? Is he a guy who has a lot of his skin in the game? If you have a mutual fund manager like Warren Buffett, who has all his net worth invested in his fund, then you know he has his skin in the game. You also understand that he is someone who is extremely competent. Everyone who is interested in investing should probably listen to what Warren Buffett has to say about investing, and always trust your money with people who are competent. So you should understand who this manager is. A manager with a good suit and a good tie is not a good manager. You need to understand his financial competencies, which means that you very likely have to become financially competent yourself. And I think that is where the first step is. And this is where the problem is. You have to individually become financially competent. Otherwise, you will end up as a sucker, irrespective of what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. And well, I'm a grown man, 34, and I can make my own decisions, but I cannot resist asking my old man, my father, for some help, because he's oh, okay, I shouldn't pick on him, but he does seem to have OCPD, not to be confused with OCD. And anyone with OCPD is like kind of obsessed about hoarding money for future catastrophes, to the point where they would study and all the ins and outs of the best kinds of ways to invest and all that. So I figured I might as well get a little help from him in some regards with a few things. And he kind of did help me with that whole thing about the big mining company, investing in that. But one thing he also did tell me, and I want to talk to you about this, about the cryptocurrency issue. The word on the street is cryptocurrencies are going to become a little bit more popular in the upcoming near future. But one thing about Bitcoin, and my father explained this. He gave a very complicated explanation when I asked him for advice on this. He said that Bitcoin, it is better to save Bitcoin like you save gold and silver, but it doesn't work well as a medium of exchange because of the router. Bitcoin's got a bad router, he said, and he gave a very complicated explanation for how the router makes Bitcoin a bad medium of exchange. But that raises the question, is that the case with all cryptocurrencies? I have not bought any cryptocurrencies yet, but I have created some accounts with some sites that manage with cryptocurrencies in the event that something comes around that says, okay, maybe I might as well get some. For now, I'm just sticking with the gold and silver in the physical metals and the mining stocks. But cryptocurrencies, what do you see about them, and what do you know about that thing that my old man said about using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange is not good because it has a bad router?
Firstly, Andrew, I am with your dad when it comes to thrift and saving. America has increasingly become an indebted society because Americans have lost an understanding of how important being thrifty is. They don't save much anymore, but for a civilization to maintain itself, you have to save, you have to be thrifty. That is the only way forward. Now, coming to cryptocurrencies, I don't give any value to cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are another fiat currencies because they don't have an inherent value. If I want to unpack my money, I should have something solid in it. Cryptocurrencies don't offer me anything. They are just zeros and ones in the cloud somewhere. So I don't give any value to cryptocurrencies. I don't invest in cryptocurrencies. I think their values is zero.
Well, your explanation there was short, sweet, and to the point. So, okay, that's interesting tidbit there. Also, let's get into East Asia for a moment here and make sense of something about China that, well, it's a paradox of sorts, but it seems to be working out for them pretty well. The idea that China is communist in name only, that's only in regards to how the thuggish Chinese police may get involved with laying down the law, or should I say the tyranny that comes with having a Chinese government, a communist government, like you do in China. There was a political cartoon that I fondly remember from seeing way back in the day, where a Christian monk was trying to do some sort of a Christian service, but he was stopped with a Chinese police officer holding a gun at him, And the Chinese police officer said, "Of course, we have freedom of religion in China. You are free to worship Mao Zedong, or else you will go to prison." Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is with religion in China, and well, lots of other things because they're communists. But when it comes to the economy, they have a lot of capitalist qualities with them, and I think that it may make sense to say that the Chinese realized that you really can't run society when there is no private property. Private property may seem selfish, but it always works out better because if everybody owns everything, then nobody owns it. Because if everybody owns it, then the people that have no understanding to take care of it have just as much a say in taking care of it as those that do understand how to take care of it, which is always going to be a recipe for disaster. So you got to allow for private properties for the people that know how to take care of something to be able to own it and take care of it, even though they may be selfish about it. That's still the best way to go about it. And I guess the Chinese realized that when they decided to take up capitalism. And I always have said the reason capitalism historically has always worked better than communism on planet Earth is because we live on a planet where money exists. If money did not exist and there was no 1% controlling everybody to try to maximize profits and making everybody suffer as a result of it, like like when Nikola Tesla, when he wanted to make all his electronic technology available to everybody to provide energy for everybody, JP Morgan and all the thuggish robber barons and capitalists told him, "There's no profit in your technology. I don't want it. I want to make money off oil, and I don't care if people suffer." That's the kind of sick attitude that has been causing a lot of people to become impoverished, but that's the way it goes, and that's where capitalism falls apart, and in some cases can become worse than communism when it comes to economics. But in the end, like I said, private property always works out better, and as long as we live in a system with money, capitalism and not communism is the way to go. So how do we make sense of China? How exactly did they become communist in name only and get capitalism, and how exactly does it work there in the Chinese system in that regard?
China is very likely a more capitalist society than the US is today. Now, also, the perception of China in the Western mind is probably exaggerated when it comes to religion and tyranny. I have not heard from any Chinese friends I have about tyranny that he has faced from the government. China is not a police state in the conventional term. You don't see policemen around in Chinese cities. You don't see busybody policemen in China. In fact, if you go to Shanghai or Beijing in touristy areas, right in front of policemen would Chinese come and try to scam you. Policemen just stay there looking around. They don't get involved in what's happening with private transactions. So I have a different opinion about what people call tyranny in China. I find it a reasonably sane society, a reasonably run society. And as far as communism is concerned, the name of the party is the Communist Party, and it's a name. It's communist with capital C. I don't see in real life at the ground level that country being as a communist country. It's probably actually the most capitalist country on the planet, and that is why that country has grown by leaps and bounds over the last few decades. It has removed hundreds and hundreds of millions of people from extreme poverty, and it has brought that country from an extremely wretched, poor, backward country to what is pretty much a second world country today. It is going to become a first world country unless something very bad happens to that country over the next one or two decades. But China has done very well in giving up communism and giving up tyranny over its people. Now, China does not like challenge to the authority of the government, of the CCP. And as a result, a lot of Chinese will hesitate to have a conversation about CCP and to challenge or say anything bad about their president. China has also had historically a very bad experience with drugs, particularly opium. There was a major opium war between China and European countries, and that destroyed a lot of Chinese people for 2 or 3 generations. So China and East Asia has a bad memory to do with drugs. The reason why drugs are heavily controlled in East Asia. Now, I am ambivalent about it, Andrew. I know you said that people should be able to consume what they want to, and I have exactly the same view. People should be able to consume what they want to. But the problem is that drugs in East Asia have had negative consequences, particularly in China. And religion also, as you can see what's happening in, let's say, the Middle East, you know that except in Europe and Western countries, religions haven't really done too well. So China is afraid of religion, but that does not mean that you can't have your religion. I have seen churches in China and with thousands of people coming in and going out of those churches, but certainly they are controlled by the government. Again, in an ideal world, I don't approve of it, but you at the same time don't want to destabilize a society that is rapidly improving.
Right. Now, we might as well talk about it. It's a sensitive issue, but in regards to trying to fix things on the global scale, how can you have a war on drugs when the government of the country is the one shipping the drugs into the country and the ones at the top of the ladder of the drug trade, and so much so to the point that anybody who tries to make money off selling drugs is going to get arrested, or if they pose a threat to the to the government's illegal market, they're going to get killed. But Portugal has tried to take a tolerance approach to drugs pretty well, and the addiction of everybody and the desire to do drugs of everybody in Portugal seems to have decreased. And one can't help but ask, how exactly does that work? And try to get the paranoid people who are so scared to death of drugs to believe it. It may be kind of hard, but doesn't change the fact that it seems to be working there, that it could be the model for how things could be done. I mean, how exactly have you looked into this? How exactly the Portuguese method of decriminalizing everything has somehow resulted in less addiction and less desire for people to engage in crimes to support their drug habits, if you get my drift.
Okay, Andrew, I don't have any detailed understanding of that issue. In Portugal, if you walk around in Lisbon, you will be offered drugs all the time because it's much easier to find, buy, and sell drugs in that country. And it seems to me that Portugal has taken the right step for its own society. But what works in Portugal might not work in South Africa or might not work in Latin America because people are different, cultures are different. And as I said, I don't understand it. I don't have a clear, I'm ambivalent about drugs. I would ideally want people to have the freedom to consume what they want to. But East China suffered hugely for about 50 to 100 years because of opium consumption that went up, that went through the roof in China. Now, some people handle some cultures and some societies handle alcohol well, some don't. In the US, you have restrictions on alcohol consumption in public spaces. In Germany, United Kingdom, most of Europe, actually all of Europe, I think, you have no restrictions on alcohol consumptions. You can sit on the side of the road and drink, and the police has no authority to trouble you. But different cultures, different societies have done what works for them. Ideally, again, I want people to have freedom to consume what they want to, but in the meantime, while the way you are, you may have to control some of these things. The fact remains that in East Asia, you will find it virtually impossible to find drugs. So while they restrict drugs, they actually implement it in a way that people cannot find drugs. I am with if I'm happier in a way with those societies because a teenage child who is susceptible to the lure of drugs has no lure in East Asia because he will not be offered drugs. He can't consume drugs because the government makes sure that they are not available.
Well, you say that, but then again, one interesting thing about Asians, they do smoke tobacco a lot. And interesting thing about tobacco, it doesn't even grow naturally in that part of the world. It's part of in the Western Hemisphere, but 2/3 of Chinese men smoke. There's more smokers in China than there are people in the United States of America, and the vast majority of them are men. Less than like 3% of women in China are smokers. But the interesting thing is, it doesn't seem to affect their bodies in the negative ways that it affects the people of America, and I think that's also the case with the Japanese and the Koreans and the Taiwanese. They're also heavy smokers, but they don't suffer the health risks of it as much as Americans do. Well, then again, America's also got the GMO problem and a lot of other unhealthy things going on in the country. But any idea on how that has worked out?
So that's an interesting thing, Andrew. I think cigarette manufacturing companies are public sector companies in China. Chinese government runs many of those cigarette manufacturing companies, if my recollection is right. So you are absolutely correct. Why does Chinese government let cigarette consumption happen at such a high level? Maybe because they get good revenue from selling cigarettes. Again, we don't live in a perfect world. And I, again, don't understand how these different kind of drugs, tobacco influence different kind of races, different kind of societies, different kind of cultures. But in East Asia, you are free to drink alcohol. You are free to smoke anywhere, including in Singapore. There's no problem with alcohol and cigarettes. But everything else is very strictly controlled, so much so that you can't find anything else apart from these two things.
Thank you. Oh, just want to get out in case any listeners were skeptical and heard something like a lighter going when you were talking about smoking there. I actually was smoking my pipe. It's not a marijuana pipe or a crack cocaine pipe. It's tobacco out of a mapacho tobacco from South America, out of a Jaguar head pipe that I got. I like to smoke during my shows. It actually seems to, among other things, help me talk in a two-dimensional level to make people that are asleep understand me better. That seems to be one of the cool spiritual things of tobacco, and it also is good like incense in keeping the spirits away, I've heard. So I think all that stuff about secondhand smoke being dangerous to us, that's actually a lie that's been pushed by the tobacco fascists, among other things, to cover the fact that tobacco smoke, it's actually as good as incense when it comes to keeping negative spirits away. So something to keep in mind. But anyway, I just want to point that out in case someone thinks I'm smoking crack or pot during the show. I'm not. It was tobacco, and I forgot to put myself on mute when I was lighting that, if anybody heard it. So, but let's move on to some other things. We got about 15 minutes. Actually, we started around 6:10 Eastern, so I guess maybe another 25 minutes. We can go here if I can come up with some questions worthy of discussing. Well, I did mention at the beginning of the show, not really to get into too much of the astrology behind it. I wanted to try and keep this to a down-to-earth talk regarding the economies and investing and all that. However, I think it wouldn't hurt to point out that one thing that I have mentioned a lot on this show in recent times is there seems to be an astrological significance regarding big changes for the United States of America and consequently the rest of the world in the next 4 years or so. There's going to be a solar eclipse that's going to be crisscrossing America on April 8th, 2024. And that eclipse is supposed to signify the end of the Roman Empire of the modern era, which is the United States of America. And one has to wonder, if that's the case, does the end of the Roman Empire mean that the American people, like I, are going to suffer? And if we're going to suffer, how is it going to play out in the rest of the world? Because, well, America, all the other countries hate it because we invade other countries more than everyone else. But the influence, it's, dare I say it, hate to say it, too big to fail, just like the banks are too big to fail, and the excuse that they've been giving us for why they should always stay in power when they shouldn't. The same with, like, you take down America, you take down the whole house of cards, unfortunately, which some say that's a good thing. They're the bad Roman Empire, the bad guys. We want to get rid of them. Well, the problem is it would be too much of a shock to the system, and one also has to wonder about the economics behind it. There has been talk of a currency reset. In fact, I don't know if you heard, Donald Trump, he kind of winked us at that, winked his eyes to tell us, yeah, that currency reset is coming, and I'm showing it to you with the presidential portrait change that I made in the White House. He actually took down the portraits of Bill Clinton and also a portrait of one of the George Bush presidents, don't remember which one, it was one of them, and he replaced it with the portraits of William McKinley and Theodore Roosevelt. Now, Theodore Roosevelt, he was kind of a love him, hate him guy. He wanted to be a good president, but a lot of the things that he did, like the national parks and all, that is technically imperialism on a domestic level, not something the government's supposed to have authority to do. He was kind of course, pressured into doing it by the banksters and other people who controlled him. And but the thing about William McKinley, before he was assassinated by Leon Czolgosz, who doesn't seem to be much evidence for it, but he was probably, if anything, a mind-controlled patsy, like a lot of assassins are. William McKinley, the thing he was best known for was getting America back on the gold standard. And if there's going to be a currency reset, one has to think that if we intend to solve any of the problems of this crazy world, we got to get the bankers to stop loaning us money that doesn't exist and charging us interest on it. Because that is the crux of why we are slaves, because that makes debt and inflation unavoidable. And as long as the banks can do that, we are economically screwed. It'd be nice if we could eventually transition to no money at all and release all the technologies out there that are being hidden that could provide for everybody so we can quit our 9-to-5 enslavement jobs and get everything that we need, and then some, but that's ways down the line. But the best stepping stone to that, to make that possible, would be no more fractional reserve banking. Let's switch to the gold standard where the money actually has intrinsic value and is backed by gold, something of value. And as a stepping stone, maybe after a couple decades, we can transition to no money at all. So this thing I just mentioned about Trump putting the portraits of McKinley and Roosevelt in place of the portraits of George Bush and Bill Clinton in the White House, maybe saying, okay, we're going to be going to the gold standard really soon. And he did also merge the Treasury and the Federal Reserve into one, for all intents and purposes, merge them into one. Do you think that there's a sign that there is going to be some sort of a currency reset going on in America? And with the dollar being the global reserve currency, how is that going to affect the rest of the world? And assuming America, the Roman Empire of the modern era, is going to crash by this eclipse in 2024 that I mentioned, how is it going to happen without America becoming an impoverished nation and so many people suffering as a result of the shock to the system change?
Andrew, for me, all indications, political and social indications, are such that America, despite being the best country on the planet today, will start to disintegrate once Trump is gone. Trump is the last person holding this country together. After him, radical leftism will come into power and they will destroy this country. Radical leftism is nothing but termite. They eat away, they hollow out a society because they believe in consumption rather than investment. And when you consume everything, all you have is hollowed out society left. So I have no doubt left in me that America will suffer hugely once Trump is gone, because the country will start to disintegrate, which will probably be the best outcome of the whole problem. But America will suffer between now and the disintegration. As far as the currency reset is concerned, I don't know when it will happen, but you can be absolutely sure that something that cannot continue forever will come to an end at some point of time. The fiat currency system is a fake system. There is no substance behind it. There is nothing. It's just paper based system, and this will cease to exist. In fact, it has mostly ceased to exist anyway, because in the last 70 or 80 years, the value of your currency bill has fallen by anything between 80 to 99%, or even more in most cases. So your currency loses its value so rapidly that it ceases to have any value in a few decades' time. This system will come to crash under its own weight at some point of time. I cannot predict what the future will look like. I don't see gold becoming money again anytime. I don't see how it will become money again. For me, gold is a mechanism. It's a lifeboat. It's a lifeboat to survive between now and after until the currency has reset. But currency will reset at some point of time. It might not happen for many years or many decades. But in the meantime, even if it does not get reset, you will be losing a lot of value, conventional value in that currency bill. So you are better off converting those that cash into something substantial. Buy something with it: gold, silver, rhodium, platinum, palladium. Invest in a stock market, go to East Asia, invest in companies, become an entrepreneur, invest in something real. Don't keep too much of cash with you, because it continues to lose its value.
Oh, and on that note, what do you think is the deal with the coin shortage that happened in America? All those coins, they didn't just disappear. They're still out there somewhere. Where'd they go? Scrooge McDuck's money bin? I mean, they have to be somewhere out there, and it's not like they vanished. They were minted, and they're still in existence. And I mean, it's been forever since I've actually seen a coin on the ground. I've always made a living out of picking up coins on the ground that I found. I had a history teacher in grade school that actually made $4,000 in 20 years picking up coins on the ground. That inspired me to do it myself, but I'm not making anything because I'm not finding anymore because there's a coin shortage. But the idea that people are hoarding the coins, well, that's nonsense. People are spending whatever money they have on whatever they need in this time of great challenge. And I saw a sign on the Wells Fargo that I went to when I did a bank run for my job, and it said, "Don't ask for coins. We are running extremely low." Well, are you? The word on the street is the banks are the ones that are hoarding the coins, so they're lying to us when they tell us that. So where'd all the coins go? What's going on here?
Well, certainly there's something, Andrew, which is someone said that uh, bad money drives out good money. Coins have inherent value. Your 1 cent coin made of copper has more value than 1 cent. So if I could collect all those cents, melt them away, or just restore them with me, I have better value, inherent value with me than owning paper cent. So bad money will always drive out good money. And that's maybe part of the story. I don't know if banks are holding coins.
Yeah, it's like another question. Where's the gold? We don't know if it's really in Fort Knox. It could be when they open the doors and showed us, well, here's the gold. Yeah, how do we know it's not just something that looks like gold that you suckered us into believing is gold? And there's a lot of gold-covered tungsten out there as well, for that matter. That's another story in of itself. Don't really need to get into that though. Not really worth talking about, I think. But one thing I do want to mention here, interesting thing you mentioned, have an article about this on your site. It's one of the more recent articles. The reality of the caste system, not just of India, but when you talk about caste systems, social structure, um, and how it could work for society or not work for society. You said the people on the left, you have bad things to say about them. Well, they're the ones that want to treat everybody as equal, but then again, that doesn't seem to work out in the real world. But when it comes to the group and the individual, I see you also have the three fathers of Western Western thinking: Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. Socrates, brilliant as he was, one thing he seemed to believe in, I heard somewhere, was that he actually thought that society takes priority over the individual. But common sense would say that that's nonsense, because the collective authority of a group cannot exceed the individual authority of any member of that group. If you can't do something, if you don't have authority as an individual to do something, you can't get together in a group and do the same thing. And by that logic alone, you can deduce that everybody on planet Earth, you got the right to do anything you want as long as you don't harm or tend to cause harm to another person or property through negligence or deliberate intent, because nobody else who is not engaged in a contract with you, therefore you're free because you're not in a contract. Nobody has authority to punish you or harm you or do anything to you as a result of your actions. But the problem is, there are some in society who believe that humans by nature cannot and should not be trusted, to the point where they will say, I want laws that blah, 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 when they don't realize, well, when they say that, they're saying, I support by any punishment, including the death penalty, the enforcement of a policy that forbids something I don't like. It's one of those things that humans that are fearful will want to be slaves. They want to be slaves because they can't trust other humans, and because of that, they will disagree with the idea that the individual needs to take priority over the group. So this caste system thing, that kind of raises the question, how does the caste system of India perceive this, whether or not the individual takes priority over the group, and does the caste system actually reject the common sense natural law ideology that group authority cannot exceed individual authority?
Andrew, if you look around the world, most people prefer to be slaves, and they want to make people like you and me slaves because they don't like the fact that you and I might be free. We might want to do and go our own way. So unfortunately, that is the case with a lot of the world. As far as India is concerned, it is hard to find even an individual there who understands, comprehends, or believes in the concept of individuality. These are tribal, collective, tyrannical societies. In fact, that's what you see exactly in all of Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, Africa. In the Middle East, if you don't follow their religion, they will cut your throat. So that's how bad things can become. So those are very, very tribal societies. Everyone in those societies is fighting for his place in the pecking order. He wants to make everyone else subservient. And that is the psychology, that is the culture of people in the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, and in Africa, in fact, all over in the third world countries. And that is why they are third world countries, because they don't let human creativity, innovation happen, because they actually mostly cull the people who would have become innovators, but also they don't encourage that at all. Their social and cultural and religious systems are centered around collectivism, and there is a very little chance for you to get out of it. And that is one of the reasons, Andrew, so many of us, people like me and a lot of people from Africa, Middle East, run away from those countries and come to places like America, because we get individuality, we get freedom. But of course, a lot more people come these days into the West for material gains.
All right, and you mentioned Africa. I don't know how much of this is a problem in the present time with this whole civilization shutdown that we've been involved in, but I heard that the United States and China were actually at war with each other over Africa, specifically Africa's natural resources. There was the Coney 2012 thing back in early mid 2012, where they made up this story about this guy named Joseph Coney, who actually had at the time hadn't been seen 6 years. They just made up a story about him being alive and well again in Africa and hurting people. But it was all a lie to get America to go into Africa to exploit Africa for its resources. And many Africans don't have internet access, but a few that did have it went on their computers immediately and made YouTube videos and all saying, please do not come to Africa or believe in the Kony 2012 thing. Don't come to Africa to fight for Joseph Kony because there is no, or to stop Joseph Kony because there is no Joseph Kony. It's a fraud. They just want to exploit our resources. And it also goes back to that thing with America wanting to go to war with China and take overpower China in regards to the resources in Africa, which is, well, why would we want to go to the war with a country that we seem to be engaged in trade in so often? It doesn't seem right or appropriate. So do you know anything about this war that China and America have over Africa's resources?
Yeah, there is no war, Andrew. I go to Africa quite often, and you can go to a lot of places in Africa where all you see are Chinese signboards. Because there are so many Chinese in those places. If you go to transit through some of the hubs in Africa, let's say Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, you might feel that you are in China because there are so many Chinese workers transiting through Addis Ababa. Now, China has made a lot of investments in Africa to exploit the natural resources. Now, China is doing it, and during the colonization, Europeans did that because Africans had no clue about those resources. That was dirt in the ground for them. The diamond was an unknown commodity for them. They had no clue about gold. They did not know how to extract it from the dirt. So the fact that those unexploited resources become exploited does not mean that China or the earlier colonizing powers were exploiting Africa. In fact, China has come to a realization that it is not easy to make money from exploiting resources in Africa. As I said earlier, I work in the mining industry. Mining is an extremely tough business. It's extremely, extremely difficult to make money in mining. It might even be one of the worst sectors to invest in. Now, a lot of people who are not associated with mining might think that mining makes you train loads of money. It does not. Mining is a very wasteful industry. It wastes a lot of money. Mostly it's uneconomical, which means that investors don't get anything out of the mining that they do. And increasingly, as you see, Chinese companies prefer to invest in the United States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or Western Europe, because they realize that it's easier to make money by investing in mining in these countries than by investing in Africa. Africa is a wasteland. Africa has always been an unmitigated disaster, and it will continue to be an unmitigated disaster. The problem is that losers always blame winners. China at least gives some kind of infrastructure, some kind of system, and some kind of job possibilities to the local people. But I don't think America has any interest in resources in Africa. America leaves exploitation of resources to private companies, and America mostly does not interfere in that at all. So I don't see how America should in any form or in any way get any blame for exploiting Africa. They, in fact, provide a huge amount of security to Africa by controlling tribal wars. And you mentioned that Kony, and I remember that video, which was crazy, which grasped the psyche of a lot of people around the world. And there's always people insisting that America interferes in some countries because there's tribal warfare happening. There are goons running those societies. But when America goes in, it gets the blame for interfering in those countries. So whether America goes in or it doesn't go in, it still gets the blame. But in terms of exploitation of resources in Africa, I think America is completely innocent. I have never come across any case in which America is trying to exploit their resources.
All right. You could believe what you want there. There's also the idea that they're not going to try to make it public, so you wouldn't really necessarily know. But then again, there's
Andrew, the problem is that exploitation of natural resources is so expensive that mostly it's uneconomical anyway. It's very hard to make money out of it. You have to, if you look at mining companies, understand their profit and loss account and balance sheets, you realize how difficult it is to make money from mining. So a lot of this natural resource exploitation belief comes from people who have not understood this industry.
all right. Thank you for making light of that. All right, so I guess I'll bring this interview to a close. People do have lousy attention spans, and doing 2-hour shows kind of has cost me a potentially big audience in many regards. So try to cut it at the 2-hour mark. So by the way, I just want to point out though, I did actually. This is only my second live show. I knew I may have a few problems. I actually am supposed to press the go live button twice, so it wasn't until after I think I asked like your second or third question before I realized that I was supposed to press the go live button a second time on the OBS stream. So I will make sure that all that stuff that you said before then, before I made this thing go live, does get on YouTube. I'm actually going to delete the live stream that is going to be uploaded automatically. I'm just going to, the thing that I recorded using the Skype recorder, I'll make sure that I upload that instead. So the stuff at the beginning that wasn't heard on the live stream will get heard, the stuff about who you are and all that and whatever else was missed there. So that will be up there. But right now I'd like you to get out anything you like, get out your contact info, any other words of wisdom you want to give out to the people before we call it a night. So why don't you close us out here?
Certainly, Andrew, I would advise people living in Western societies to try to understand why they have been the only society that became so prosperous and rich and became civilized. And because a lot of them have lost understanding of that, the Western society is adrift these days, morally adrift today. I run a seminar in Vancouver every year in July. Next one will be on the 24th of July, 2021. It's called Capitalism and Morality, and we talk a lot about what is there about the Western society that made it so good and so prosperous, so respecting of the individual. So have a look at that website. And just about everything I do goes on my website, which is jayantbhandari.com, including my work on capitalism and morality goes there.
Thank you very much. So pleasure interview, fascinating interview. I will upload this to YouTube by midnight tomorrow. Again, make sure I got all the stuff at the beginning there that was not uploaded, what didn't get live streamed because I didn't press the live stream button a second time like I was supposed to. I'm not going to make that mistake again with all my other future live streams. So take care. Best of luck to you. Maybe I'll catch you on some investing video again in the future that I'd like to, because I'm really starting to look at investing a lot more seriously now. And well, good luck to whatever that will happen with this world, with the economies and all, even if it may be a bumpy ride. I'm sure we'll all weather through the storm. So take care. Namaste. Have fun. Good luck.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Andrew.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye now.